play here, and that this was released early because of an attempt by the conservative judges on the court to squeak it in there so that districts could be redrawn in favor of Republicans before the election. But what we've learned is that this was a decision that actually was decided 7 months ago. The liberal judges, however, weren't getting their homework completed in writing their dissent. And the release of the opinion does not occur until the dissent writes their thoughts on it. And these liberal judges have done this on more than one occasion for what clearly is beginning to be seen and recognized as for political purposes. And there's this interesting aggravation that is going on behind the scenes, according to, I don't think it's just sources, but you can understand human nature would be this way, that Sotomayor and Kagan have been doing this for some time. And no one's the wiser. I mean, the other justices, they understand what's going on. They understand that at times the liberal judges are slow-walking their dissents in order to politically time the release of the opinions. But Ketanji Jackson Brown keeps opening her mouth, drawing attention to it. And in fact, because she's so emotionally undisciplined, accusing the conservative judges of doing this for political reasons, which has allowed, if you will, the majority to most recently note, actually, this has been done for months. You all are the ones who are responsible for the timing of this. And there is said to be some friction with Kagan and Sotomayor as those liberal judges, because Jackson Brown is sort of blowing their cover on this whole thing, and they're quite aggravated at her lack of discipline in utilizing the court's opinions for political purposes. I'm going to read through her piece coming up here, because what Molly Hemingway notes in her book is that this is literally putting some of the justices' lives in danger. This same operation was underway with the decision that resulted in the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and the slow walking of the dissent after the leak, leaving a window of opportunity open for the left to rally their troops, to get the protests going, which of course would ultimately result in someone coming very close to assassinating Kavanaugh. And so these liberal judges are not only making things political, but putting the lives of the conservative judges in danger. It's a pretty stark evaluation. And interesting at the same time. So we're going to share that coming up. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. Now the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise cloudy with a low around 57. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77. And taking a look at Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 81.
The Federalist has a piece, SCOTUS liberals caught slow walking another ruling to help Dems. Now, this is significant because the usual projection of the Democrat Party, anytime they are pointing the finger and claiming that Republicans, conservatives, Trump supporters are doing something, in all likelihood, they are the ones that are the offenders. And there have been accusations most recently, even in a dissenting opinion, that the conservative justices they're interfering in the upcoming elections by handing down the opinion that constitutionally you cannot segregate people based on race in drawing up congressional districts. In other words, say, oh, we want to create a congressional district that is primarily people solely of this color. That's not something you can do constitutionally. And because of the timing of that, that has allowed a number of these states to potentially redraw districts before the midterm elections because they have in the past been forced to draw up districts based solely on race. And this decision has said, yeah, you can't do that. And so what they're ultimately it all boils down to, they're concerned that the undoing of race-based gerrymandering is going to result in less Democrat seats. It, however, turns out that it isn't the conservative or constitutional judges on the court that are releasing these opinions for political purposes, but it's the liberal justices. M.D. Kittle writes in The Federalist, Supreme Court liberals' penchant for slow-walking major rulings isn't simply political. It has put in peril the lives of the conservative majority. As the Federalist Molly Hemingway uncovered in her New York Times best-selling new book on Justice Samuel Alito, the High Court's three liberals long delayed the release of the Dobbs v. Jackson ruling reversing Roe v. Wade. They refused to deliver their long overdue dissent for months, stonewalling even after their ideological allies at Politico leaked a draft of the majority opinion in early May of 2022. The unprecedented leak set off a wave of leftist protest and a liberal firestorm of pro-abortion-led violence. 6 days later, on Mother's Day, a radical who was eventually arrested firebombed the Madison headquarters of Wisconsin Family Action, a Christian pro-life, pro-family organization. The attacks on the right would keep coming. Protesters lined the streets and sidewalks outside the conservative justices' homes. Quote, Alito asked the dissenters to make the completion of their dissents their priority because delay of the decision was a security threat. Hemingway, the Federalist editor-in-chief, writes, in Alito, the justice who reshaped the Supreme Court and restored the Constitution. Abortion supporters had an incentive to kill one or more of the justices in the majority to change the outcome. One would-be assassin was breathtakingly close to completing the deadly errand at Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home. Justice Elagin Kagan, an Obama nominee, seemed so hell-bent on stalling the ruling that ended nearly 50 years of bad law and nationalized abortion that she screamed at fellow liberal Justice Breyer in his chambers, demanding he not give in to the majority's exhortations. Kagan remonstrated with Breyer not to accommodate the majority screaming so loudly, observers noted, that the wall was shaking, Hemingway writes in her book. Now we learn Kagan and her liberal colleagues slow-walked another Alito written opinion, Louisiana versus Callius, which effectively put an end to Democrats' nakedly race-based gerrymandering. The case focused on a lawsuit led by the NAACP demanding Louisiana create a second majority black congressional district. What they were really after was forcing the red states to draw up another Democrat seat. Lower courts helped them do just that. The plaintiffs argue that just one majority black district was a violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. As the American Spectator described it, the section established affirmative action for black Democrat politicians. This had not produced particularly outstanding results, however, and by that I mean the results it had produced have names like Hank Johnson, Sheila Jackson Lee, Frederica Wilson, Benny Thompson, Maxine Waters, Dollar Bill Jefferson, Sheila Kerfilis McCormick, Al Green, Cori Bush, and lots of others. The magazine Scott McKay wrote, "The Congressional Black Caucus has been the repository of crooks, dopes, communists, and reprobates on a scale unmatched by any other, for the express reason that the districts producing the Star Wars Cantina scene cast of characters that makes up the caucus are protected." Alito and the majority agreed with Louisiana resident Philip Burt Calais and others who argued Louisiana's revised map is an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. The 6-3 ruling was ready to go. The court had first heard oral arguments in the case in March of 2025. It was reheard in October and finally released late last month. Curiously, the long-delayed ruling, compliments again of the liberal wing of the Supreme Court, came out in the wake of Hemingway's book on Alito and revelations of the dangerous slow walk on Dobbs. Quote, "So they had nothing but time on this, and I think it does confirm that reporting for this case that they were slow walking," Hemingway told me on an upcoming episode of the Federalist Radio Hour podcast slated for release today. "The motive is clear. Drag out the release of the case so state legislatures won't have time to redraw their maps. If the legislatures run out of time, that helps Democrats take back power," Hemingway noted. She said Kagan is far and away the most political of the liberal judges, saying, "I don't even mean that in a bad way necessarily. She comes from more of a Democrat political world and knows how to play politics," Hemingway said. "Usually justices are awful about politics. They think they're good, but they're just awful. Kagan is actually pretty good about doing it and getting a desired outcome." Associate Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's lone dissent attacking the conservative majority on procedural grounds laughably accuses the justices of having partisan motives. She unwittingly, as KBJ routinely does, exposed the partisan motives of the court's left wing. Jackson is upset about the timing of the release of the ruling, which would not be advantageous to the Democrats' campaign to take back the House in the year's midterms. In a rebuttal criticizing Jackson's attacks as a groundless and utterly irresponsible charge lacking restraint, Alito notes that the constitutional question was argued in conference nearly 7 months ago. The court could have released the ruling long before it actually did. Hemingway said, "The decision comes out, the left is outraged, they won't be able to artificially manufacture these racist gerrymanderers, and they're losing their minds, and so they try to appeal various aspects back to the court." She said the other two liberal justices, Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor, were savvy enough not to throw a hissy fit. Jackson was not. Because she throws the hissy fit that is absolutely ungrounded by law or reality, it gives Justice Alito the opportunity to include a footnote saying, "We conferenced this back in October." The point being, you all on the left slow-walked this. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board noted as much last week, saying the footnote suggests some pique by Justice Alito about the court's long gestation on Calais, and understandably so, since Justice Jackson is accusing the majority of playing politics, the board wrote. Not surprisingly, many corporate media outlets have yet to report on the liberal justices' delay games, and in the case of Dobbs, the perils created in the waiting. We know why they're not talking about it. Which is that they are playing a political game, and it would not help them politically to reveal how political the liberal justices are being, Hemingway said. And, of course, the media isn't going to highlight this, but you can only imagine, as we often do and often note, if it were the other way around. And if it were conservative, constitutional judges slow-walking dissents for the purposes of getting riots going, and that was the real result of the Dobbs decision, and the leaking of what that decision would be to Politico, but the liberal judges waiting to finish their homework on the dissent to give time to those rioters, to those protesters. And at the same time, you had the Biden administration and this was Merrick Garland, tell U.S. Marshals to stand down, telling law enforcement, allow those protesters to violate federal law, because it's not a free speech issue at that point. It is a federal violation against federal law. It's a felony to protest outside the home of judges, of these justices, for the purposes of intimidating them or attempting to intimidate them into changing where they stand on a particular issue or swaying them one way or another. And the protesters were fully transparent. That's exactly what they were doing. There's no dispute about that. Their whole point was to prevent the judges from, or to attempt to prevent them from, overturning Roe v. Wade. That was their stated purpose. And Merrick Garland ordered the law enforcement to allow them to violate these federal laws. So you see how, whether one hand, the left and the right hand, knew what one, each one was doing, it was coordinated effort, or just in tandem, you have what, even if it's somewhat innocently meant to simply be political, you have these real-life results of, in that case, the combination of efforts from the liberal justices, Merrick Garland as the Attorney General of the United States of America, creating an environment, and one or potentially more of the Supreme Court justices were almost assassinated. This is well beyond plain politics. And for the liberals, whether they are elected officials or Ketanji Brown, pointing the finger at the conservative judges, accusing them of releasing opinions in order to have some sort of political impact, is the standard projection that we get from the Democrat Party. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. A couple of other Supreme Court news bits here real quick before the traffic. The Virginia Supreme Court, of course, striking down the state's redistricting referendum last week, a huge blow to the Democrats as they've been really overplaying their hand and self-owning themselves on this. And they are now they're asking the Supreme Court to essentially restore the new voting map and redistricting fight, but I don't really think there's any legal chance that they will be of a great success there. In the meantime, a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court has allowed the state of Alabama to move forward with their choice to redraw their congressional maps ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. With that ruling, Alabama will proceed with a new map that would add an additional safe district for Republicans. between the narrowing of the Voting Right Act and the Virginia Supreme Court ruling that declared the heavily gerrymandered map favorable to Democrats, unconstitutional. Democrats are far on the back foot in the fight to create generous maps in their states. And so, again, this is a cell phone. This is something that they could not leave well enough alone. They have, for decades upon decades, been allowed to benefit from gerrymandering because Republicans felt that it was an uncouth way to go about doing things, generally speaking. Not that you didn't have some degree of it, but the straight up clear political gerrymandering that Democrats were, particularly when it comes to using race in order to segregate people, was something they had been getting away with for a long while. And, of course, then Trump encouraged a number of Republican states to fight back. And instead of just accepting that and utilizing it for political purposes, accusing Republicans of trying to create new seats because they can't win elections, they had to start trying to double down. And they got greedy. And they got ahead of themselves to where they started breaking laws, ignoring laws, in order to try and double down on the gerrymandering they've already done. And it's backfiring on them to a pretty significant degree. And they have spent a lot of money and a lot of time doing this. And this is, potentially the sort of mistake that could have very long-term implications. Not to mention when you figure in there will be, in just a few years, a new census. And it has been acknowledged by the Census Bureau that they overcounted significantly some states while undercounting significantly other states. And the vast majority of the states that they overcounted were Democrat states, and the vast majority of the states that they undercounted were Republican states, which of course means the Democrat states would end up with a greater member of Congress, while the Republicans on the flip side, which translate to electoral votes, which of course then means blue states have more power when it comes to the presidential election. And so if in the upcoming census that, quote, accident that benefited almost solely the Democrats to the detriment almost solely of Republicans doesn't occur, and it is done accurately, that's going to be another major advantage for Republicans in picking up a significant number of seats there as well. Springfield's Talk 104.1, a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight, a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise cloudy with a low around 57. For your Wednesday, a sunny with a high near 77. And for Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 81.
U.S. Senator Mark Warner has come under some not Mark Warner, but Mark Kelly. He is one of the U.S. senators that had encouraged U.S. military personnel to defy orders if they, just thought that they were illegal or unconstitutional. Instead of going through the standard chain of command, the protocol of doing such things, he said, hey, no, and you just need to defy the orders. And he has most recently, after leaving a classified briefing, came out and revealed what he claimed was information that he was provided about specific weapons, specific missiles that he said we were dangerously low on, and that this could be a real danger to our national security, and that we wouldn't be prepared to take on countries like China. These are the sort of things that we don't even know if they're true. We have seen Democrats, specifically U.S. senators, Adam Schiff being one, that would come out of these briefings that were behind closed doors and make false claims about what information was provided in those briefings, particularly when it came to the Russian collusion hoax. It was a favorite pastime of Adam Schiff to come out of these meetings, tell the media that I can't tell you what I saw, but once this information comes out, you're all going to see there's proof that Trump and Putin were colluding together to steal the election. There's the smoking gun. There's multiple smoking guns there. He would do this consistently. The media would broadcast it, and then we would learn that none of that was true. None of it was true. He would, of course, be rewarded by becoming a U.S. senator. He was a member of Congress at the time. Now you have Mark Kelly doing the same thing. Arguably, the implications are worse. Because let's say for a moment that it is true. That's the sort of information you don't want the enemy to know. That is the sort of information that you keep quiet if you care about your national security. See, there's a difference when you are at war than expecting people to, keep their mouths shut and just rubber stamp everything that the commander-in-chief in the military wants to do, versus openly revealing what you claim are the weaknesses of the United States of America and their military, and broadcasting that all over the world to our enemies. Why would one do that? If you really, you can't claim it's out of concern, like I'm just really worried about our national security, then you wouldn't do it that way. If this were true, if it is, then and your concern is national security, the only thing you're going to do by announcing it to the press is make the national security implications even worse. The only thing worse than having some sort of detrimentally low stockpile of particular weapons and missiles is if the enemy knows about the situation. Nothing comes of this other than giving the enemy information that suggests to them where our weaknesses are. Whether it's true or not, even if it isn't true, it is still giving information to the enemy that will lead them to believe that we are weakened in certain areas that may encourage them to keep fighting. This is utter insanity. Now, the left knows that what is being done here by Senator Kelly, and by the way, let me back up a moment. Let's say he even has very poor judgment and thinks, well, this is something that the world needs to know. He was very, very specific in listing specific types of military assets. I mean, if an individual just felt so absolutely compelled and really convinced him or herself that it was in the best interest of the United States of America to let our enemies know that we were weakened in a certain capacity, you wouldn't have to give them actual details so that they would have a more clear idea of exactly where it is that we are weakened. But you could just come out and be like, hey, I'm not going to give details, but this effort by President Donald Trump is draining certain assets militarily that give me concern. Instead, he gives very specific examples. When this was discussed on CNN, Pete Hegseth, of course, fired back at him publicly. And so then the absurdity of it, I don't think I have the audio, but Scott Jennings on this panel with CNN, Scott Jennings making the same point that I'm making now. To which the host of the show says, well, but Pete Hegseth, I mean, didn't he elevate it by firing back at him? So really it's Pete Hegseth's fault if the enemy, now validates or if they benefit from this information about diminished military assets because, Pete Hegseth fired back at him, telling him that he needs to keep his mouth shut. And so that all that does is prove that he's right. Well, what is the administration supposed to do? This is the very dark, nefarious weapon that somebody like Democrat Senator Mark Kelly can have in his back pocket. He can reveal information that endangers the national security of our country. And then one of two things happens. Either the administration doesn't want to validate it to potentially, just further validate damaging information, so they keep their mouths shut and they don't fight back against it, which that benefits him because, look, they don't even deny it. But if they do respond publicly and they criticize him for leaking information that he's receiving in these briefings, then he can point the finger at them, as Democrats are doing, and on CNN they were doing last night, saying, well, you can't get mad at Mark Kelly, because you guys just validated what he said. This guy is supposed to be a U.S. Senator. Is there any Democrat left that has not become a proactive agent for our enemies at large? Some specifically, in fact, we'll get to a story later. Some Democrat mayor out in California admitting that she's been acting as a Chinese agent for the Communist Chinese Party. She's been doing that for a couple of years. Every time, whether it's just a press conference or a political statement or an effort that Democrats are standing up, making some sort of point or some sort of rallying cry, it is always on behalf of people who are not Americans. And in some instances, like with Mark Kelly most recently, it is on behalf of people that are enemies of this country, that we're at war with. The only one, in fact, I'll play audio coming up, Fetterman. Fetterman is the only Democrat that is even sort of dancing on questioning the motives of his colleagues in some of what they're saying about the war against Iran. I'll play that. He was on with Bill Maher and Donna Brazile, who worked closely with Al Gore. She was, I think it was CNN that she was with at the time that she got caught feeding debate questions to Hillary Clinton before a debate with Donald Trump, so she ended up losing her job. It was one of the networks. So she's a real class act, that Donna Brazile. But Fetterman's responding to something that she's saying regarding, again, criticizing the war in Iran and oh, there's no plan and it's going horribly and we're losing. Once again, propaganda for the enemy. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, there's still a lot of door knockers out and about out there, and the majority of them, they do not have your best interest in mind. They're usually from other parts of the state, or oftentimes they're even from out of state, and they do crummy work, and when something goes wrong with your roof a year down the road, they aren't around to fix the issues. They also force a lot of people into contingency agreements, and once you sign that, it is very difficult to get out of. If you have roof damage from the recent hailstorm, make sure that you go with a trusted roofing company that's been around for a long time. And I always recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. They offer free roof inspections, and they work with you through that insurance process, including the adjuster meeting, and they won't upsell you or use scare tactics on you. If it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.
Oh, here it is, everyone. Ah, yes, indeed. All week long, every hour, your chance to win a Mexican Villa Big Fiesta Pack. Feeds 12 plus.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, no, oh, no, oh, no.
Oh, no.
No. It's all right. Here, we'll get that taken
I got
care of.
it.
Sorry about that.
I forgot.
Right.
I thought I put a stop on it.
Everybody's just so excited. I mean, it gets very, very exciting.
I totally put a stop set on
when I believe you. I am not one.
Stupid Zeta.
I am definitely not one to question whether you put a stop command in there.
I did. I swear I
know
did.
I'm saying because I failed to do it quite. Failed to do it quite often, so I have no standing whatsoever. I believe you. I trust you. Zeta screws up more than you do.
That is true.
So
it does.
It does. So you're good. All right. So Ben Shalata got me all kerfluffled here. All right, so in honor of graduation, one of the great, easy, fantastic ways to make sure everybody gets fed at the graduation party or festivities is the Big Fiesta Pack, available at all Mexican Villa locations. Your chance to win one now, a $99.99 value. Oh, I don't know the word.
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, do I?
Yes, there's a sticky
Oh,
note.
there we
I
go.
would never set you up for failure.
Thank you.
Ever.
I know you're the best. You are the best. I mean that.
As you should.
The word is party, P-A-R-T-Y. Text that to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. And we'll be doing this, again, keyword every hour. When you hear Ben Shalata screaming like that, then we'll tell you to text in. Every hour is separate winner. So this will be for the 6 o'clock hour, and you'll win that giant Big Fiesta pack that you'll be able to pick up at any of their 7 locations. And you can purchase your own by going to MexicanVilla.net. So text the word party to 417-447-KSGF. All right, well, let's do traffic. And I want to play some of that Fetterman audio because, again, he's the only normal Democrat left. And so we really need to give praise where praise is due. Fetterman clapping back. Donna Brazil regarding this standard, very lazy approach Democrats have been taking towards Iran, and that is that there's no plan. There's nothing going, it's just willy-nilly. Trump doesn't have any plan, and lives are being lost, and trying to play this off as Trump just one day up and decided that he wanted to overthrow Iran. And there was no precedent for this whatsoever. That Iran, we have no policy consistency here. Iran's just some country that's been, out there. Everything's just fine until Trump came along.
I believe that the precise war that we're fighting now is one without a strategy and one without an end game and one that is costing us more than just American lives.
Yeah, that may be. Every single Democrat has said we can't ever let Iran build a bomb. And then every single president, when Kamala Harris was running for president, she identified that as the top concern for her international. And then finally, we did something about that. And I absolutely support that thing. And for me, now I think it shouldn't be controversial as a Democrat to say, look, we don't have to agree every aspect of Epic Fury, but I do think we should all agree that here we are at the cusp. hold them accountable and remind them they are the bad guys. We are not the bad guy. And I'm absolutely convinced, too, the Democratic contempt for Trump exceeds the concern or the anger towards Iran. And that's why that's pushed us into, we've lost the entire, it used to be standing behind the military, regardless behind everything. That's become bipartisan. It's lost being bipartisan.
Yeah.
This is, again, I feel like I say this quite often. I'm not trying to be funny or humorous, and I'm not even trying to make a point. How is it that even with the difficulty he has communicating, he still makes so much more sense than every other Democrat? Straight up. I mean, these understand the mindset, an entire political party that hates the American chosen by the American people to be president. They hate him more than the number one exporter of terrorism in the world. This was Fetterman's point, that the hatred for Trump overrides any sort of disdain for the enemy. This is a country that has vowed to wipe us off the map along with Israel. This is a country that actively is still attempting, probably focused on a number of other things right now, but serious attempts to assassinate our president. And to Fetterman's point, it isn't as if Iran was in the ally column and then Donald Trump one day, because they were trying to assassinate him, decided, you know what, I think we're going to just topple that regime. Almost like the Obama administration deciding one day to topple Libya for reasons that never were really articulated. Every Democrat and every Republican can't let Iran have a weapon, can't have Iran have a weapon. At every major foreign policy move that was made by the Obama administration helped them advance their nuclear capabilities. Same thing with the Biden administration. So Trump comes along and actually does something meaningful, again, which is in line with what every past presidential candidate and president has said, and now all of a sudden it's the wrong thing to do. And the Democrat Party, best we can tell, only has one elected official that can acknowledge that, and that's John Fetterman, the one Democrat that the party's trying to oust. Springfield's Talk 104.1 and a good Tuesday morning. I was asked to mention this, and I kind of forgot. You know, we, of course, have our lunch bunch of Godfathers, and we do the teachers' pizza party. We do all sorts of stuff with them. And a couple of weeks ago, there was an individual that did the gas instead of brake thing, apparently, and went through the front door. So, the Springfield location. I say that in case you drive by and you're like, well, it looks like they're closed. They're boarded up. No, they're not. Now, when we did Lunch Bunch Wednesday, they still had that portion of the building boarded up. I suspect it still is, but there's an entrance on the south end. So where the door normally is down to the right, you can enter there. And we just don't want you to drive by, glance, and think they're all boarded up, closed up, and not open for business, because they most certainly are for all of your needs. And that can be carry out. They do delivery, of course, but Springfield location is a salad bar and a buffet. And just wanted to give you a heads up on that they most certainly are open. President Trump announcing plans to potentially slash the federal gas tax. And there's, at the same time, Congress is getting involved, which may be necessary. I don't know. You know, Trump likes to say, well, I'll just do it. And in some instances, I guess an executive order does make that possible. Others, it may not. According to Politico, Josh Hawley released legislation yesterday that would suspend both the 18-cent gasoline tax and the 24-cent diesel tax for 90 days. Representative Anna Paulina Luna said she would soon follow with a House bill. But then Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, who's a Republican and chairs the Senate Finance Subcommittee with jurisdiction over energy issues, said last night he would not support a suspension of the federal gas tax, quote, right now, citing the federal debt and deficit. Don't get me wrong. I think that the deficit and the debt are so completely problematic that it is beyond comprehension. But it always kills me when suddenly a member of Congress it seems like Congress only, or certain members of Congress, will only be concerned with the debt or deficit if it means more money in our pocket. Like, oh, now you're worried? Now you're worried? All of the massive, ridiculous, insane spend. I mean, just you think of all the fraud that's been discovered, and you really begin to believe that maybe 10% of the spending goes to legit stuff. We're increasingly seeing these stories about massive fraud, and not just in Democrat states. You get it kind of popping up in some of these. Ohio, I think, we've seen some of these problems pop up. Now, they're generally in Democrat cities that it's occurring. But still. And you find, tens of billions over here going to Somali drug kings. You got tens of millions over here going to these people. You got tens of billions over there. And then it's like, hey, maybe we could get a 90-day pause on 18 cents a gallon. No, now the deficit, see. Whoa, we can't do. Oh, okay. What are we? How many trillions in debt are we at this point? I'm not even arguing this is the right thing to go. I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential implications to this that might even potentially backfire. And so this isn't an argument that it's a great idea, but it really cracks me up. Oh, the deficit. All right. And the debt. We're really going to concern ourselves with that now. Okay. Jeez. Come on. Really? I don't instinctively like the idea of having that temporary pause of 18 cents because, one, given how much it's gone up, I think that it is almost potentially going to aggravate people. Like, I'm paying $1.50 more and 18 cents. This is the answer. And I know it's short term, and every little bit helps. I'm just talking about the perception of it. It'll also allow Democrats to paint the administration as to not really having an appreciation for how problematic this is for the average person to have gas prices up 50 cents. And then, and listen, even mark my words, even when gas prices do get down to where they were before, and even potentially below, rightfully so, Republicans are going to point out, hey, they went back down. But what Democrats in the media will do is, well, I mean, you shouldn't get rewarded for that. I mean, that's like rewarding an arsonist for putting out his own fire. I mean, this was just a problem he created. And while, yes, I mean, obviously we have seen the price of gas going back up significantly because of the effort to make sure that the number one exporter of terrorism in the world, who has vowed to destroy us, doesn't have a nuclear weapon. The promise was that it'll go back down. And so that will be a promise fulfilled. And it will be much, much lower than it was during the Biden administration. The thing like the federal gas tax, if you temporarily suspend it, then all of a sudden it's gone. And then all the, people's gas, boom, overnight, 20 cents a gallon, it goes back up. And I don't know. It just seems like I said, every little bit helps, and there's something psychologically. Every part of the country is different, but $3.99, $3.99, $3.99, a $3.99 place I passed by this morning, it was $4.04, and there's something psychological about rolling into a new dollar amount. Now, not every area is at that point. Some are above, most are, but when you hit those little those rollover points into a new dollar, I think psychologically people who have held out and thought, well, we can get through this, is like, oh man. Trump plays the long game. Trump has learned that if you look for short-term gains, in the end, you usually lose. And that when it comes to long-term, substantial, anchored into life, these positive changes, sometimes it really does take a sustained period of time to get there, and even some growing pains. And this is just what he has learned in all of his endeavors out there. And that's not often the way that we, as the American people, we're not generally subject to a president that views things that way. I look at what Biden did going into the midterms. His answer in terms of the actual, dealing with the cost of fuel was to dip into our reserves. And once the election was over, then that was the end of it. So, it was just real temporary. Now, Trump is looking for something temporarily to bring some sort of relief, but that relief is needed because of his long-term plan here to have steady and solid lower gas prices. And we're not used to having a president that is as goal-oriented, with the recognition that, yeah, this may be painful for a while, as Donald Trump. And so part of that is dealing with what we're dealing with today. All right, we're going to get a traffic update here in a moment. Right now, the latest news update. Oh, yes, it is time once again, everyone. Benchalada letting us know. Keyword time for you to win a big Fiesta pack from Mexican Villa, available at any Mexican Villa location, so you can enjoy a Fiesta anywhere, anytime, even by yourself while crying if you want to. This is graduation week, or we're in graduation week time, and it's a hot time for these Fiesta packs, and so part of celebrating graduation Mexican Villa, giving one away every hour during the morning show this week. Text the word PARTY, PARTY, to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. And if your name is drawn, then you'll be contacted and you'll win that $99.99 value, feeds 12 plus. You can order your own by going to MexicanVilla.net. But the keyword this hour is party, 447 KSGF.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms, otherwise cloudy with a low around 57. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77. And taking a look at Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 81.
Ozarks elder law, very important to make sure that you have a plan for what is almost always the unpleasant. And it's not always about death. You hear so much about wills and trusts for when you pass on, and that is very important. And it is important to be guided by experts, attorneys in that particular area, not to, for a couple $100, download something off the internet, because that's not going to do it for you. But also, what happens if you're in some sort of accident and you can no longer make decisions for yourself? Do you have somebody listed to do that? And if you're married, you think, oh, well, I'm married. So by default, this person will be my legal guardian. They will have a medical power of attorney. It does not work that way. I believe we think it does because oftentimes, you have a situation and the husband or wife is allowed to make the decisions. But if You don't have all of that legal paperwork done, and you get a hospital. It's like, you know what? No, I think actually we're going to pull the plug. You don't have a say. So this is where you want to make sure that you get together with Ozarks Elder Law, free consultation. So whether it's power of attorney or how it is you're going to plan to save for a nursing home or where your things go when you do pass, they will get you set up, let you know before you decide whether or not you want to move forward, how much it'll cost to get it all done. So you get to make the decision after they research what you need to do. OzarksElderLaw.com, also Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. There was a text that came in that noted, this is the Pyramid Roofing Company text line. We're talking about gas and gas prices going up. And the message said, now that they see we can make it work, the gas prices will not go back to what it was. Mark my words, we're all screwed. So the suggestion here, as I'm inferring, is that when prices actually go down, it will not be passed along to us. Now, I disagree with that for a number of reasons. And one of the reasons I disagree with it is because that's never happened in the past. And people have always believed that it would. There have been numerous instances in which there have been disruptions, in the planet, sometimes directly related to energy, other times not necessarily directly related to energy, in which we saw a massive increase in the price of gas. And people held that same belief. Well, they'll never go back down because it's all about profits, and we are still buying gas at this price. So whenever, be it the gas stations, I get, or the oil companies, I don't even know who they necessarily are when this suggestion is made, when they say, well, when they realize that we will continue to pay because we are now, then they'll never lower the price. I don't know if that they is the gas station that sets the price of the gas, or if it's the they are the people who are selling the oil. But the suggestion is that they'll like, oh, look, people are still buying it, so it's costing us less now, but we're not going to lower the price. That just hasn't ever happened. Even when we saw the massive spike during the Biden administration, some of it was disruption because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, but it already was increasing due to Biden policies, both energy and inflation and so forth, and it spiked up significantly, and it's come back to, I remember during the Obama years, for a number of different reasons, prices were really high. And they came back down. There's this idea that the price is set. I mean, listen, it's all supply and demand. That's what it is, supply and demand. And gas stations themselves consistently, and this is the thing, that the profits that get made aren't necessarily because, we jacked up the price. It's because of the volume that's being purchased. Now, if you have losses that occur over a significant period of time, there may be a period of time in which they try to make up for it by having a little bit more of a profit, but ultimately it all levels out. This is just how it's always worked. You even think about, if you think about it from a gas station perspective, and you have one gas station, it's like, oh, okay, so now it's only costing me this much. I'm charging $4 a gallon right now, and it's dropped, but I'm going to keep it at $4 a gallon because I see people are paying for it. And even though it's costing me $3.50 to buy now as opposed to $3.90, I can make 40 cents more a gallon. Well, guess what the gas station across the street does? They're like, well, I'm going to sell a lot more because I'm not going to do that. I'm going to charge 2 or 3 cents less. And then guess what the other gas station does? It's the competition there until they settle upon this area of comfort in which they're making some, but they can't really lower it too much more. They can't, because then they're going to start losing money. Now, this is an overly simplistic view of it, but this is part of the reason why that concern has never come to fruition. And why we in the past have had numerous spikes. And people have continued to purchase. Yet never has it resulted in the industry keeping the price high because they recognized, whoever again they is or are, that we would continue to pay that price. And so, well, why? We can just make that much more profit. It's just never happened. And there's reasons it doesn't happen, because it just doesn't work that way. So, I mean, that's the good news. So the irony here is, it is the desire for profit that actually keeps the prices lower. As long as you have numerous different competitors out there. If you just have one outlet, then yeah, sure, they can do whatever they want. Jack it up. Where else are you going to go? The problem with, anyone who would desire for that scenario to exist is there's somebody across the street, there's someone down the road. There are all these other companies that would be like, I'll just charge a little bit less. And finding that balance of making a little bit of money, yet still having a price set where people will come purchase it. And when you are competing against other entities, in order to get the highest profit possible, you have to have the most people coming possible combined with the amount that you're charging. And if you have a spiked amount, you're going to have less people coming to purchase your product, which means less profit. So that's the brilliance of a free market system. And it's why, ultimately, on this global stage and in the United States of America, whenever the actual cost of doing business comes back down, so does the price at the pump. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. When food and other services rise due to energy prices, they never go down. Here's what I think happens. In a healthy economy, there's always a degree of inflation. There's this healthy degree that you want. And so as you get older, you look back and I remember when, so for me, for example, all cans of soda and all regular candy bars were 50 cents. That was just standard. Soda machines, 50 cents. And that obviously is not the case today. And so we have this, this recognition that prices do always go up. But that is, to a degree, healthy. Sometimes we, however, associate it with unhealthy things that occur in our economy. So, we think, well, and we know this is true. You have an increase in cost of energy. Well, energy is used to deliver all these products, and so the cost of delivering products more. And ultimately, the consumer is what pays all of that. We think that it never comes back down from these spikes because we remember soda was 50 cents a can once upon a time, and it never went back to that. As long as you have a healthy economy, there will always be a slight increase in prices. Now, the healthy economy also means that the person's average income slightly increases just a bit more than that. That's the sweet spot when you have that occurring, when you have your income growth exceeding the inflation growth. It does happen, however, whether it's because of energy or other reasons, that sometimes when there's an unnatural spike, it does come back down. Look at eggs. Were they like $8 for a dozen at one point? Just your regular standard, or $5, $6, $7, $8 a dozen, and they're back down $1.50. Now they aren't what they were 40 years ago because of the natural healthy inflation. But there are instances in which the unnatural, unhealthy spikes, when they go away, there is a drop-off oftentimes. But in the long term, overall, there is that slow, steady growth that is an indicator of an overall healthy economy. All right, so let's do some traffic here. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 447-KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Fields Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight we'll see a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms, otherwise cloudy with a low around 57. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77. And taking a look at Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 81.
Let's see here. Okay, I think there were a couple other text messages here that I wanted to share with you. Lumber went down after fake-ass COVID. That's true. I like the terminology there also. That is an instance in which you may recall lumber was up. And in fact, I was at a lunch deal on Friday in which someone in the industry noted that really in terms of construction costs, that stuff is that's not the problem right now when it comes to housing. That really it's pretty good overall in terms of product and so forth. It's regulations and in a number of different reasons. You got capital gains tax issues and so forth that have caused the market to be problematic, particularly for first-time home buyers. But so many of these costs we forget about. We forget about the huge spike in lumber, and so point being is that when you have these industries and they have a spike because of supply and demand, and they recognize, well, people are still buying it, and so the instinct is to think that they are then going to keep the price really high in order to make profits, and that they do come back down when it's an artificial spike, and that's because of competition. The lumber, let's say you got Lowe's and Home Depot, I'm just going very simplistic here, and that price spikes, and then, and so then it goes back down, and Lowe's could be like, well, we're going to keep it high. Well, then Home Depot's like, well, we'll do it 10 cents cheaper. We'll sell higher volume, which means bigger profit. And Lowe's is like, well, we can play that game, and eventually they get down. This is why you don't have the markups on things as much as people would think. Someone had noted on one of the text messages that it was their understanding, and they weren't sure if it was regional or across the country, that gas is, the stations get about a penny on average, maybe a little bit more per gallon in terms of profit. And yeah, that's pretty consistent. The massive fluctuations that you see across the country, some of it's because of delivery cost, some of it's because of regulations, California being an example of that, along with taxes. And that competition component in there is what brings those prices back down for us when the cost to the producer or the seller comes back down, as opposed to them keeping it artificially high. That's a good thing. So the free market system's a good thing. Ultimately, this is what's fantastic about it. When you have a free market system and a system that allows for competition, those seeking the biggest profits do so by creating the best quality product for the consumer at the price that ultimately the consumer wants to pay. And so it really benefits, and at the lowest price possible, while still making a profit. And that's the fantastic, beautiful thing about that system. And what seems counterintuitive to a lot of people, they think that, well, the more profits the businesses want, the more that the consumer gets ripped off. Generally, it's to the contrary, because they fight for you to purchase their product, and so that means lowering prices as much as they can at times in order to get you to come to them, and so the lowering of the cost gets offset by the volume. Now, some people would say, well, what if you get the industries get together and they collaborate to artificially keep the prices high? Well, that's against the law. We have laws that say you cannot do that. All right. Now, Wall Street Journal has a piece here about the United Arab Emirates and how they have been secretly carrying out a little quiet on the side war, not really on the side war, but attacks on Iran. There's been speculation, there's been chatter that while on the surface this has been a war that's been carried out by the United States of America along with Israel, but there have been other meaningful, sustained military attacks against Iran from maybe some other countries with the help of other countries. And the United Arab Emirates is one of those primary countries. They write that the UAE has carried out military strikes on Iran, people familiar with the matter said, casting the Gulf monarchy as an active combatant in a war in which it's been Iran's biggest target. Its military is well equipped, with Western-made jet fighters and surveillance networks, and the attacks suggest that the country is now more willing to use them to protect the economic power and growing influence across the Middle East. The strikes, which the UAE hasn't publicly acknowledged, have included an attack on a refinery on Iran's Lavin Island in the Persian Gulf, the people familiar with the matter said. The attack took place in early April, around the time President Trump was announcing a ceasefire in the war after a 5-week air campaign, and sparked a large fire and knocked much of its capacity offline for months. Iran said at the time the refinery had been struck in an enemy attack and launched a barrage of missiles and drone strikes against the UAE and Kuwait in response. So you may have recalled, even within the first few weeks, we were hearing reports of Iran lobbing missiles at some of these other Arab countries. Like, what are they doing? Well, it appears as if it was retaliation in recognition that, at least in the case of the United Arab Emirates, they also were militarily involved in trying to win over the efforts of altering the landscape of Iran so they don't have nuclear capabilities. The UAE's Ministry of Foreign Affairs declined to comment on the strikes, but pointed to previous statements in which it asserted its right to respond, including militarily, to hostile acts. The Pentagon declining to comment. The White House didn't address questions about the UAE's involvement during the war, but said President Trump has every option at his disposal and that the U.S. has maximum leverage over the Iranian regime. Dina Esfandiari said it's significant to have a Gulf Arab country as a warring party that struck Iran directly. She's Middle East analyst and author of a book on the rise of the UAE. Tehran will now aim to further drive a wedge between the UAE and the Gulf Arabs who are trying to mediate an end to the war. Apparently the UAE, while it doesn't have in scope, obviously, the sort of military and air force the U.S. does, they certainly have very sophisticated capabilities. Highly trained, this is according to the Wall Street Journal, highly trained and capable air force with Mirages and a fleet of advanced F-16 jet fighters supported by refueling planes, command and control aircraft, and surveillance drones. The capabilities give it unusually sophisticated air power for the region, according to retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General David Deptula, who planned the air campaign for Desert Storm, noting of the United Arab Emirates, they are very strong in terms of precision strikes, air defense, airborne surveillance, refueling, and logistics. If you have the capability of an air force, why would you sit back and absorb attacks from Iran without responding? And there's increasing chatter that it may get to the point where the United Arab Emirates, along with other potential Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, may just full-blown declare official war against Iran. Now, ideally, that could potentially be the best step forward. The so-called boots on the ground, if you will, to have some of our allies in the region take this thing over. Have them own it. Obviously, we would have some sort of collaborative effort as we are allies increasingly because of the efforts of Donald Trump, not just in the first administration, but the second administration, creating these scenarios in which it becomes beneficial for these countries to not be problematic. This is where Donald Trump's brilliance is. When he wants something from another country or another individual, he creates a scenario in which it benefits them to want what we want. So they aren't doing it because you talked them into it. They're doing it because they realize we can benefit from this. So it becomes their own self-interest to ally with us. And I don't think it should go unnoticed. The remarkable historical shifts that have resulted because of Donald Trump crafting these relationships in both of the two administrations of his, to where you have some of the Arab nations in the Middle East actively and militarily waging a war on one of their neighbors because, again, they see it in their best interest. Springfield's Talk 1041, the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs. Anthony Carrick or Alex Carrick or direct access to these two individuals and their team. You go to iwantagreathomeloan.com. There's some great information there if you are thinking about doing the home loan thing or questions about refinancing, reverse mortgages. But they also have their cell phone numbers there as well, so you can call out, reach out to them, text them, I guess, as well. 7 days a week, and they'll be responsive of that. They want to make sure that you do have that direct contact. It's one of the things that sets them apart from so many other people in so many other industries, and that is still that good old-fashioned customer service, eye-to-eye, work directly with you in order to make sure that it is done right. And as we increasingly move to all the AI and the automated stuff, to have that, and not as a tactic, not like, hey, everyone's moving away from real people customer service, but because this is how they've always done it. And this is how they plan to continue to do it, because it works, and they think it's the right thing to do. So if that's the level of service that you want when it comes to home loans, refinancing, reverse mortgage, I want a greathomeloan.com. A question that came in on the Pyramid Roofing Company text line: why do prices rising slowly over time, why is that a good thing? Well, it's a good thing if at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, slowly incomes are also rising. And you want them to be rising at the same level or a little bit ahead of cost of living, ideally ahead of cost of living. So the reason, this is an overly simplistic view. Ideally, what happens is you've got people, and people have jobs, and things are going well, and so that means that when things are going well, then the companies can pay people more, and people have more income. And when people have more income, The industries recognize that, and at the same time, the industries have employees, and all these other industries are paying their people more. We want to pay our people more too, and so that oftentimes requires a little bit of a raising of the price of the product in order to increase the pay of the employees, and also a reflection of the fact that things are going well, and so it's all they're all indicators, if you will. And they're all responses to things going well. When you're doing good business, the economy is moving along. You're able to pay your people more, to give those bonuses, and you want to see that really occurring across the country. I think about, and we laughed at times when Trump first got elected, and these tax cuts in these businesses. And what did they immediately start doing? They started hiring people and paying people more. I mean, it was almost every day there was a press release from some company, oftentimes locally here. Hey, we're going to be paying bonuses. We're going to be hiring middle management. We get to do this. We're going to expand over here because they had more of their own money due to the policies of Donald Trump. And when you see that across the scope and the scale and the ability to start paying people more, and with that, again, often now in that instance, of course, it was because they had more of their more money through the tax cuts of Donald Trump. But you sell erasers. And because the marketplace is doing well, the people are getting paid well more, and so you recognize, we can charge 2 cents more per eraser because people are making more money. They're doing better, and then with that increases profits. And this is the other thing about being profit driven. Well, what can you do in order to get more profits? Well, you can expand your business, hire more people, make more erasers, and so when you have that healthy economy chugging along and everyone doing well and expanding, the natural component to that, or a natural component to that in that formula, is the fact that the goods and services will also be rising a bit as well. So it's not really so much of an action that leads to things being better. It's the result of things being better, if that makes sense. Now, the economy, of course, can be made so complicated, oftentimes by rules and regulations. But the one thing we do know when it comes down to it, as long as you let people create their own businesses, make their own hiring decisions, and allow the consumers to be the most important factor in a business's decision, everyone benefits. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Springfield Livestock Marketing Center, another busy week out there, whether you're looking to buy or if you're looking to sell. They have 4 sales this week, 2 being today. Today they'll host their Holstein steer special as well as their dairy sale. Wednesday they'll have their annual feeder sale, and on Saturday they'll host a special cow and bull sale. So plenty of opportunities to buy or sell. Now, if you are on the selling side of things, Springfield Livestock, well, they accept cattle 7 days a week, and they have field reps across the listening area. And they are always there to answer any questions that you may have, or even if you, need help hauling. To check out other upcoming sales, visit their website and check out their calendar of events, springfieldlivestock.com. And of course, you can find all of the contact information for Springfield Livestock under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
One day after Mother's Day, Trump touted efforts to support the growth of families, Monday announcing the launch of moms.gov and a series of initiatives to support new mothers and expand access to fertility care nationwide. Now, I'm not a believer that government should be involved in this stuff. I don't even like the idea, the concept of moms.gov. I think that the more government gets involved in families, generally, it's not good. I think that even if the immediate effects or the direct effects are generally positive, just this concept that of getting people to go to government to tell them how to be a better mom or how to be a better this or to have, I don't think long term, as well intended as it may be, it's beneficial to the family, beneficial to the country. All that being said, I remember a time in which we were told Donald Trump was going to ban fertility care. Remember that during the last election? How when it came to fertility treatments, Donald Trump was going to ban it. J.D. Vance was going to ban it. And here instead, Donald Trump is pushing forth to give greater and more affordable access to fertility care. Springfield's Talk 104.1. Hey, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Sarah Myers is here, too.
Hi.
Excellent job. We are also on YouTube. You can watch us there. Should you like to do so, just search Springfield's Talk 104.1, and you can find us. Also, keep listening for the Mexican Villa Sounder, your chance to win an awesome giant Fiesta pack. This all in honor of graduation. Lots of graduations going on, and sometimes you have people over, family over, friends over, graduation parties, and that Fiesta pack is an awesome go-to. It's very popular this time of year. I did not know this. It is something I learned, and so in order to highlight that in our partnership with Mexican Villa, giving one of those away every single hour during the morning show all week long. So another chance coming up. It's a text-to-win deal. Pretty simple stuff. I wanted to read to you what Debbie had to say about Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, noting we cannot express how thrilled we are with our backyard makeover, led by Daniel Hunter. From the initial consultation to the final touches, Daniel displayed remarkable expertise, creativity, and professionalism. He patiently listened to our ideas and transformed them into a stunning outdoor space that perfectly suits our needs. The design features beautiful stonework, efficient landscaping, cozy seating area that has become our favorite place to unwind. Man, I echo that. The entire team at Hunter Hardscape was punctual, courteous, dedicated to delivering exceptional quality. We've received countless compliments from friends and family, and our new backyard has become the highlight of our home. Thank you, Daniel and the Hunter Hardscape team. We highly recommend the services to anyone. That from John and Debbie Setzer. And again, I echo all that. In fact, yesterday, Josh was over Pyramid Roofing, and at one point I just saw him, kind of looked at because he was on our outdoor patio, and he goes, "This is really nice." He said, "Man, they did a really good job." It's like, I know, I'm telling you, they're totally 100% awesome. HunterHardscapes.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. A Democrat California mayor who has since resigned has been charged with acting as an illegal agent of the People's Republic of China and has agreed to plead guilty. Well, just shocking, isn't it? This according to federal prosecutors who say that she secretly worked on behalf of China to push pro-Beijing messaging inside the United States before she took office. Eileen Wang, former mayor of Arcadia, California, has been charged with acting as an illegal agent of the People's Republic of China, agreeing to plead guilty to the felony offense. She now faces up to 10 years in federal prison, along with a potential $250,000 fine, though any sentence would be determined by a federal judge. Federal prosecutors say Wang admitted she acted at the direction and control of Chinese government officials from at least 2020 through 2022, coordinating with individuals in the U.S. to spread pro-Beijing messaging, all without notifying the U.S. Attorney General as required by law. The conduct described by prosecutors occurred before Wang took office at the Arcadia City Council in December of 2022. Arcadia City officials said the case is tied to Wang's individual conduct and does not impact city operations. Now, the interesting thing on this gal's background is she was at one point a registered Republican, but she switched to the Democrat Party. And the timelines appear based off of her timeline switching to a Democrat. It was after she switched to a Democrat that the Chinese successfully targeted her to act as a foreign agent. I mean, that's just perfect, of course. Swalwell, we know, was targeted by the communist Chinese by way of a Chinese spy. You have this individual pleading guilty to acting as an agent, this Democrat mayor in Arcadia, California. And we know that there was a Chinese spy that worked for years in Dianne Feinstein's office. I mean, this isn't uncommon. I mean, and it's always a Democrat that they target, which I think tells us a lot. You may ask yourself, why do they target some of these individuals? Like, why at the time, we're talking about Arcadia, the mayor of Arcadia, California. Even when Swalwell was targeted by the spy, he was he wasn't really well known on the stage. In fact, I believe he was targeted prior to even becoming a member of Congress, if memory serves. I think what happens, China's a very long game in their approach. They're very patient. And I believe what happens is they get their hooks in a lot of people. I suspect there are, particularly, again, Democrats, that are council members, that are mayors, that are entry-level politicians that aspire to have a long life in politics. And instead of trying to get the big fish, spending all their time, here is somebody who is a high-level Democrat. Hey, let's see if we can compromise them. They get their hooks in lots and lots of little fish with the expectation that one or two of those little fish will become a big fish. And recognizing that they've got them at that point. Because what are they going to do? Because they become bigger and bigger and bigger. Are they at some point going to tell the Chinese, oh, no, I'm going to cut you off? I'm going to sever relations? Because guess what? The Chinese has a lot on them. Oh, really? Because you've been helping us a lot. Boy, that would be very inconvenient for your ascension into politics if this information were to come out. So they got you. To a degree, for a while, it worked out. Their targeting of Swalwell, because he went from some relatively unknown to being on the committee that deals with national security issues. And because it's the Democrat Party, even when he got caught with the Chinese spy, Nancy Pelosi still left him on the committee. I think that must be what's occurring here, and I'm sure this isn't any sort of brilliant analysis. It just makes sense when you see the Communist Chinese Party, and they're either utilizing as foreign agents or they're targeting some of these low-level nobodies. It's in all likelihood just knowing, okay, you get a lot of little fish get hooked into them, and one or two of them, hopefully they get into a position of much higher authority, and the others that don't, so what? Then you just at some point lose interest in them, but it's playing that long game. You wonder how far back they were targeting Biden and his family. Got weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise cloudy with a low around 57. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77. And for Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 81.
Pyramid Roofing Company text line question. Sarah, if I enter the code word the first time in the morning, do I need to re-enter it to 7,
You
8
do
o'clock?
not.
Okay, there you go. Bonus. It will be a different code word every day, but yeah, so you have an opportunity there all 3 hours with that code word. This is for the Mexican Villa Big Fiesta Pack giveaway that we're doing every hour this week during the morning show in honor of graduation week. So keep listening, for you will hear the sounder and the word given once again. If you've missed it thus far, this one we give the word 3 times a morning show, once an hour. So if you catch it, that's your opportunity to enter and win. I'd mentioned in the opening of Hour 3, a California mayor has pled to secretly working for China, faces up to 10 years in prison, $250,000 fine. And with the consistency we see, Democrats targeted by Chinese spies and or becoming assets willingly of the communist Chinese government. And someone had texted in, I get what you're saying about the Dems, but I sincerely believe Mitch the Turtle McConnell is working for the Chinese. Well, he certainly, whether he knows it or not, yeah, I think probably. I mean, his father-in-law, I think it's shipping, perhaps in China. I mean, his wife is Chinese. And I do believe that there are a significant number of influential Republicans that are tied up with the Chinese in what would be considered legitimate business ties. It seems as if when it comes to the more nefarious approach to infiltrating our government, they target the Democrats. Either that or somehow they never get caught while targeting Republicans. Yeah, the business tie component to it across the board. I think that you do have a lot of leadership tied up that are Republicans, but when it comes to the spying and the, maybe paying under the table to be foreign assets and so forth, that consistently seems to be the Democrat Party. I mean, you had back in the Clinton years, actual garbage bags filled with cash from the communist Chinese, helping try and get Bill Clinton elected president. And some people went to prison for it. Of course, the Clintons had no idea. No idea. There was one case Al Gore had gone to, it was a Buddhist temple, in order to fundraise, to raise dollars from non-Americans. It was straight up illegal. Straight up illegal. And it was a straight up fundraiser. And Al Gore testified. I think they were congressional hearings. Fred Thompson chaired them, who was the then U.S. Senator from Tennessee. He'd run for president, also an actor. Hunt for Red October, Law and Order, among others. And Al Gore claimed he did not know it was a fundraiser. And when it was noted, but this is, it was the whole point. How do you go to a fundraiser and not hear people talking about raising money? And he claimed that he drank a lot of iced tea that day, and he kept having to go to the bathroom. And it must have been every time he went to the bathroom that they were talking about the fundraising. I kid you not. That was his defense. So the history of the Chinese paying off and buying off Democrats has a pretty long history in this country. And many argue that the reason for it largely is because they recognize that, and this is part of their long game, that Democrats are destructive to the United States of America. That the policies, the Democrat policies, are policies that will ultimately benefit the Chinese in their quest to dominate the world because they will so weaken the United States with their policies. When Joe Biden and Donald Trump were campaigning against one another, there was that audio that I got, quote, leaked of a communist Chinese official talking to students at one of the universities about how it is that they wanted Joe Biden to be president because they, the Chinese, had sway over or, quote, controlled Wall Street, but there was no way to control Donald Trump because Wall Street did not control Donald Trump. Donald Trump did what Donald Trump wanted to do. There was no one that had the ability to pull any strings on Donald Trump. The Iranians ultimately also were trying to interfere in our elections on behalf of Joe Biden. You notice the countries that want the total and complete destruction of the United States of America are the same countries that try to get Democrats elected to office. Like, straight up. I wonder why that is. NBA legend Magic Johnson has endorsed LA Mayor Karen Bass created a gushing video about just how wonderful she is. He said, you took on a tough job here, and you've done a fabulous job. And all of us appreciate your efforts, what you're doing. We look forward to helping you continue your mission and the things that you have in store, your vision for the city, he tells her. Tell me what I need to do. A number of Americans, including citizens of Los Angeles, have piped up and made some notations. One, he doesn't even live in Los Angeles. This is a Beverly Hills guy that has its own separate mayor. He also lives in a gated community in a $7+ million mansion with some other uber wealthy people. And that's fine. Being wealthy is great. This is an example of what I've always said, that the uber wealthy can afford to support Democrats. The uber wealthy can afford to be liberal because they don't suffer the consequences of the policies. They are not the ones who are forced to ride mass transit under Democrat rule. They are not the ones who have to deal with the criminals roaming through the streets. They are not the ones who have to step over homeless people and feces and needles in order to get to work. They are not the ones who have to worry about being held up at gunpoint because they have armed security guards around them at all times. They don't have to worry about the policies. It is a virtue signaling that makes them feel good, makes them feel as if they are supporting these compassionate individuals, yet they get to pull the ripcord and live outside of the damage that is done to the average person. It's not a coincidence that Hollywood, the vast majority of people in Hollywood that are liberal, live in areas that protect them from the results of the policies that they support. It's very convenient for them. There's another story here that is somewhat in the same vein of people suffering the consequences of Democrat policies and the elites who ultimately create a lower quality of life for the people they claim they support. And there's a story in the New York Post about a 23-year-old woman recounting the terrifying subway attack she suffered at the hands of the same madman accused of fatally shoving a retired Big Apple teacher down a flight of stairs hours after being released from a psych ward. So what happened here ultimately is that you've got this crazy criminal, murders a teacher just hours after being released from another incident that was an attack on her and a friend. And this person was in a psych ward, but not in prison, did not go to jail, because the original victim's a lefty and did not want to see, quote, another black man in jail, so did not pursue charges. Now, even if she had, this is New York, so who knows what the outcome would have been. They may have let the guy walk anyhow. But when it comes to the results in this original victim, this lefty, she tells the New York Post, quote, I regret it, talking about not pursuing charges, not wanting to press charges as the victim. Quote, I regret it 100%. I actually feel really bad that a man lost his life. Maybe a part of me was just like, I don't want to put another black man in jail. But you know, at some point, if you're a criminal, you're a criminal. And he was scary. He was a scary guy. You think about what liberalism has done, particularly to the most vulnerable in our society. Here, it took, in that particular case, a young woman, 23 years old, who was brutally attacked. She was with a friend, and this guy was harassing them and like, grabbed her by the hair, pushed her down, was just physically assaulting her from subway car to subway car before they finally escaped. Yet in her mind, he was the victim. This is what the Democrats have done this is what they do to the minds of people. 23-year-old woman who felt she wasn't the victim, the guy who viciously attacked her on the subway. She had been trained to believe he was the victim. And she would further be victimizing him if she demanded justice. And so what's the result of that? Not only is the result of this Democrat ideology, a 23-year-old young adult woman believing that as a white person, this is just her lot in life, and that she isn't the victim when she gets beaten by a black man, but the black man is. It isn't just that is the result of Democrat ideology, but a teacher lost his life because of it. Now, again, the uber wealthies, the Magic Johnsons, the celebrities out there, they don't have to deal with this stuff. They get to live in their multi-million-dollar mansions surrounded by security. They certainly don't have to take mass transit if they don't want to. But they train and condition the rest of us, or at least some of the rest of us, to just believe this is the way it is. And I'm the bad guy when I get attacked by one of the other privileged. Are these really the conditions that are positive for women, positive for the more vulnerable? This from the party that claims it is the party of protecting women, yet brainwashes them into believing that if you get attacked, you should just keep your mouth shut, sweetheart. If it's a person from this category, this category, this category, or that category. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Another chance coming up here, right? We haven't done yet this hour, correct? Am I right on that? We have not
No,
done
we
this.
have not
Okay,
done
yeah,
it, no.
all right. So we still have another chance. Sorry, I couldn't hear you because of the music. To win a Mexican Villa Fiesta Packs, that coming up. Listen for the keyword, and you'll text that in. And we're doing this all week long in honor of graduation week, along with Mexican Villa. Now the traffic. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 83. Tonight, a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise cloudy with a low around 57. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77. And taking a look at Thursday, mostly sunny with a high near 81. Do you hear that? Do you hear it?
Hear what?
I think Benchelada might be outside the door.
Oh, it is Mexican Villa. Enjoy a fiesta anywhere with the Mexican Villa's new Big Fiesta Pack. Feeds 12 plus, only $99.99, and it's got it all: soft tacos, crunchy nachos, chips, 2 types of queso, Mexican rice, beans. Got all the different fixins. I don't know. Is that what's the Mexican term for fixins? I don't really know.
Fixins.
Fixins, should that work? Yeah, okay. Plus hot sauce, mild sauce, sweet sauces, all 7 locations. You can buy them easily. Ordering online is the preferred method. You go to MexicanVilla.net, and then you can pick your location. Or you can win one. They are giving them away with us, through us, once an hour, the morning show this week in honor of graduation week. Text the word PARTY, PARTY, to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 417-447-KSGF. And that'll be your entry for the 8 o'clock hour. If you win, you'll be contacted, and then you can go online and get yours all set up so you can enjoy. You can share it with others. You can eat it all yourself if you want. You can have some friends over. You just enjoy it however you want to, because Lord knows it's enjoyable. Oh, speaking of exciting stuff, thought I would air this from last night.
You ever hear a city hum like it's got a story to tell?
Okay, that's the audio. Here we go. Here we go.
Tom, dim the lights, and here we go, America. Sir, the nationwide vote. And an incredible season. The winner of American Idol 2026 is...
Yay! Willow Springs' very own Anna Harper. Very exciting. How exciting. I cannot believe how long that show has been on air.
I know.
It's really interesting that it's still on, and I only say that because when the first one came on, and let's see, well, that was the early 2000s, right? Somewhere around there. What
It
was the
first
first year? 2 or
premiered
3
June
or 4?
11th, 2002.
2002. And the internet didn't exist the way it does now, to where if you were someone who really wanted a chance at stardom, there weren't the outlets. I mean, anyone still, I suppose, probably through uh, um, MySpace, you could produce and put it up, but it just wasn't like it is today, where all of this is so easily accessible, and social media that feeds you stuff, and you have so many different people that get online now in order to try to sort of get their voice out there. In fact, there's so many out there now that it's become a little difficult perhaps to stand out. But so the concept of American Idol, that was like it. If you were somebody that wasn't in the loop of how it is to work the music industry, and you like had to go out to Nashville, or you had to go to Los Angeles, you had to go to these places, or and just hope that you got, quote, discovered. And then along comes this show that does these opening auditions at different areas of the country, and then picks some of the individuals and then flies. And so you could be someone like a Carrie Underwood, who, of course, Oklahoma, had never even been on an airplane before. Kelly Clarkson, who was the first season winner from small town Mississippi somewhere, I think. Just she was a bartender or a waitress and then I just thought it was such a neat thing. And it still is, obviously. I mean, it's been a venue that has propelled Hannah Harper and given so many people access to her music that weren't aware of her before. All the people of Willow Springs probably already knew, but outside of that, and so just the fact that I guess the internet exists the way it does today, that American Idol still has the pull that it does and the influence it does, is a pretty impressive thing, I'd say. But that was really awesome. Yeah. To see that she won that. Coming up, there was last night, or yesterday rather, in the morning, this data center meeting in Marshfield. Just want to share with you a little bit of information from that. There isn't anything real groundbreaking. A lot of people, in fact, said that they have more questions now than they did before, which isn't necessarily unusual for an event like this. But just, again, increasingly, people are very concerned, and they hear data center, and the default is no, we don't want that here. And clearly, as this becomes something that is popping up in communities across the country, and we see it across Missouri, these folks that are behind the data centers, I think, have a new challenge on their hands, and that is, they can't simply come in and build without people noticing, because people are watching for it. And they've been able to some degree, I think, build up and not really, I guess, go under the radar. Not that they're necessarily trying to, but people just haven't been as concerned about them as they are now. And that, of course, is going to produce some new challenges for those wanting to build these data centers. KY3, hundreds of residents filled the Marshfield High School auditorium yesterday to press county leaders and a developer on a planned AI data center that many want stopped. The project is a 5-acre Tier 3 AI-ready facility on Rifle Range Road north of Marshfield, built by a company called Lumon Solutions. Site preparation began without a public announcement, catching many residents off guard, community members voicing concerns. Ranging from environmental impacts to noise, lighting, water usage. Quote, when power is used, there is energy doesn't. It cannot be destroyed or created. It's put somewhere right now. My main concern is that it's going to be turned into heat. Where is that heat going? Said Seth Atkinson, who opposes the data center. Other questioned how much water the facility would use and whether enough information had been shared publicly about the project. The developer said a well drilled 500 feet deep will supply the facility with only a few gallons used per day through a closed-loop system. Many in the auditorium called on Webster County commissioners to sign a moratorium to stop the project. Commissioners said they're consulting legal counsel to determine what authority the county may have. Quote, we, the county, have hired the law firm Carnahan Evans. They're a very thorough law firm. They're looking over all this stuff, and they're going to give us a definitive from state statutes on what we can and cannot do as far as a county, said Dale Fraker, Webster County Associate Commissioner. Fraker said county oversight is limited because there's not a lot of county oversight here with planning and zoning or anything like that. What folks in Webster County do with their personal property is their business, he said. Fraker said the commissioners want more answers on environmental impacts and have not ruled out additional public meetings. Christine Vonde Grind, who opposes the data center, said the meeting left her with more questions than answers. Quote, those answers did not put me at ease. In fact, I think it probably raised more questions than answers. There's so much that we don't know about the potential environmental impact, she said. Lumon Solutions did not respond to a request for comment. Yeah, there's a reality here that is inevitable, and that is the building of these data centers. That is happening because of the increased use of data. So where do they go? It's been noted that from national security purposes, we do want them here in the United States as opposed to China, because China would love to have them. They want to have physical control over, or, which they would. It's a communist country. And so built on their land, ultimate control. And when we're talking about our data, our usage, China having yet another form of influence, authority, or control over that data is not in the best interest of the United States of America. So where do they go? Much of this is, I talked about some of this yesterday. It is the unknown, and that is legitimate. I think people should know. They should ask questions. It has gotten to the point, and this isn't just locally. Doug Burgum was actually, I think yesterday, talking about this very issue in the data centers and concerns people had with the data centers. And the concern that it will increase the price of electricity. And he was noting that isn't always necessarily the case. In fact, in some instances, because of the way the infrastructure and deals are done, it can cause a drop in prices of electricity. I think the one thing, though, that these companies that are responsible for the data centers, and this is, again, I said yesterday, they're dealing with a different landscape now because people are watching out for this stuff. And in many communities across this country, when somebody catches wind that property is sold, it was purchased by a developer of a data center, they're getting on social media and they're sounding the alarm, and then people are very concerned. And I'm not saying they don't have a right to be concerned at all, but this is a landscape that it's growing. And that landscape, I mean, is the landscape of skeptical residents that are saying, whoa, wait a minute. And I don't believe if the desire is to continue to build the data centers here in the United States in the current direction that they are, continuing to operate the way that they are, I don't think that's going to work. There's got to be some sort of new approach that recognizes and deals with the concerns of the citizens. And I don't know what that approach is. I don't know enough about the industry. I don't know enough about the data centers. I know about as much as everyone else does, but it's clear that there are a great deal of concerns that a lot of people have when it comes to cost of power, when it comes to environmental issues. Those really seem to be the two biggest, cost and environment, which oftentimes goes hand in hand. And when I'm talking environment, I'm not talking about the left-wing, global warming, polar bear environment, but hey, what's going to happen to our drinking water? That's the very local, very real life concerns in which maybe there aren't any dangers beyond what any other industry offers up in terms of construction and infrastructure, but not leading with that stuff, not being proactive in going to a community and telling the folks ahead of time, here's what's coming, here's why we think it's good, and sort of winning them over. I think it's going to prove to put up some roadblocks that they have not had to deal with as of yet. And even if legally everything's on their side, and taking the approach, hey, we bought the land, we got the permits, and this area doesn't have jurisdiction over us, it can still cause some problems. It can still cause delays. It can still cause a number of different drains on revenue. Because while you may go into it believing and even do have solid legal ground to move forward, if you get community because of citizen response, it's like, well, we're going to go ahead and file a lawsuit, even if you're in the right and you end up becoming the victor. It could get delayed by a significant period of time and cost a lot of money in order to move forward. Just this way that things have been operating, because now people are much more aware and asking a lot more questions. I think there's going to have to be a change in approach on this. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Someone texted in. At first, I didn't know. I thought, what are they talking about? I was saying fixins, talking about Mexicanville and all the fixins. I go, what's the term to use? And well, fixin sounds good. So someone texted in saying, good morning, in Spanish, everything, all fixins. So some translations. Con todo means with everything.
Okay.
This is the go-to phrase for burgers, tacos, or sandwiches to mean all the toppings or ingredients. And then con Todos sus agregados, and a number of different variations, but con todo apparently would be, everything.
There you go.
So that's what you get with the Fiesta Pack con todo. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Just want to give you another reminder. If you have hail damage to your home, you'd think to check things like your roof, your gutters, but don't forget your outdoor HVAC items as well. Make sure that your outdoor AC unit is running okay. Make sure that it doesn't have a ton of dings and dents, and make sure that the flue for your furnace and your water heater are okay as well. I was talking with Russell the other day, and he said they've received quite a few calls for hail damage. Now, if you do have damage, or maybe you just want a second pair of eyes on things, you want a professional opinion, make sure that you reach out to Russell and Foreman Mechanical. Now, the Foreman team, they handle everything from your simple repairs and maintenance to new unit installs. They also have a 24/7 emergency service line as well. So if it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Regarding Webster County Marshfield data centers, text message. Marshfield should do what Springfield does, ask the people, and when they say no, just do it anyway. I don't know if this is in the city limits of Marshfield. I think it's north of, because it's becoming somehow a Webster County focused issue. But nonetheless, the point is taken, and somewhat humorous, I would say, at the same time. Camden County, Lake of the Ozarks, just put a stop to a data center. I want to say Joplin, Jasper County has been also grappling with this. And another asking, have you heard what Elon Musk plans to do? Build them in space, and then you have solar power and no need for water and cooling. I had heard that, but I don't know much about it other than someone saying pretty much that same thing. Have you heard Elon Musk? I don't know why I found this amusing. I came across it as I was visiting different news sites this morning, and the news leader has, of course, it's formatted like a lot of different news sites are, where you've got your main news, and then as you scroll down, you have a breakdown. There's opinion, there's trending, and then there's Ozarks Life, right? And so I see Ozarks Life. There's a few stories. The first story, Springfield Buffet Entertainment Center debuts new sign with new name. Now, this is the Incredible Pizza, which they had this story about how they were changing their name to Incredible Food and Fun or something like that. I don't remember, but I saw the new sign. In fact, I drove by it and I noticed it. And so that was the first Ozarks Life story. The second one, RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars returns, how to watch season 11. I guess I have a much different understanding of what Ozarks Life is. I got the I'm thinking, here's some event over here. You go to the Lake of the Ozarks, Table Rock Lake. You can, hit this. And in fact, we've got, along with the partnership of Hunter's Hardscape and Outdoor, promoting sort of, the Ozarks Life. And so when I saw listed number 2 on Ozarks Life on the news leader, making sure everyone knew how to watch season 11 of RuPaul's Drag Race, I thought, I just have a much different understanding of Ozarks Life, apparently, than others. Glenn Beck coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.